Hey again, and welcome back to another video. So today I want to do the legendary comparison for Atlas, and the legendaries I want to compare are Temporal, Divide and Deja Vu. So I think those are the most common Atlas legendaries, or the most played Atlas legendaries. I think Unstable Fissure, in my opinion, isn't really worth it, but I don't know. That's not part of the video, because I want to talk about Temporary Divide and Deja Vu. So first gameplay, we're playing Temporary Divide, and for Temporary Divide, I feel like, or not specifically for Temporary Divide, just in general for both legendaries, is important to know which is more of the off-tank role. I mean, Atlas is, no matter which legendary you play with him, is an off tank in my opinion. It's hard for Atlas to actually play on point, because compared to other tanks, he has a pretty low HP pool. I mean, that's fine, that's good that it is like that, because otherwise he would be too strong. So if you want to see, or if you look at my HP, 4250 doesn't look that weak, but actually I invested 5 points into my base HP to bring it over 4000. So usually it's lower than 4000. So his general HP isn't that high. So it's, I don't know. It's in general it's hard for him to play as a point tank. And I know there are many people, or I've seen at least some people saying that if you have the big wall, like if you're playing Temporal Divide, then you want to play off point tank. Sorry, then we want to play point tank, because you have such a great wall. You can just decrease all, or you can just not decrease. Decrease was the wrong word. I didn't want to say decrease. You can just avoid any incoming damage or whatever, just because for a whole area you're just shielding, you're walling. That's true, yes. But look, your cooldown is doubled. So before, I don't know, the game starts or whatever, like for the legendary Temporal Divide, you have a bigger wall. Your wall is really, I don't know. I think the description is actually like you the size of your wall is increased greatly or something like that, but your cooldown is actually increased by 50%. So your normal cooldown of your wall is 14 seconds. So if it's increased by 50%, you bring your cooldown when playing Temporal Divide to 21 seconds. So 21 seconds is a pretty long time for a tank to survive on the point with just standing in the open. So we are not considering any cooldown reduction currently. We're just talking about the legendary itself. We're just talking about his general kit, or his I don't know, ability pool he offers. And therefore 21 seconds without any shielding, without any cover or something like that, is a pretty long time. So you basically can win a point fight in 21 seconds, or you obviously can also use a point fight in 21 seconds. So it's a pretty long time to actually be without cover, and being not able to I don't know, get behind cover, be safe or something like that. So that's why 21 seconds or whatever, like Temporal Divide is just too, the cooldown is just too long to play him as a point tank. But I think there are only a few people saying this, but I've seen it sometimes, people saying this is point tank, but in my opinion it's not, just because the cooldown is too long, and for several reasons I've already explained. I think this is definitely the even more point off tank, sorry, the even more off tank legendary than Deja Vu also would be, just because you want to, as the off tank, like the basic role off tank is to enable your flanks, enable your DPS, enable your team, pressure the enemy backline, and just have an impact on the game. So okay, now you know, or we know, off tank is there to have an impact on the game, enable your DPS or flanks, and also be able to pressure their backline on themselves and get kills and stuff like that. So when or what for you want to use the wall, like you don't want to use directly in front of you, like you don't want to place the wall like you would place a normal barrier, a normal sheet or whatever. You actually want to place it yeah, a little bit to the side, if it makes sense. I don't really know how to explain it. But you actually want to try to cover as much as possible of the whole map. So as you see, I try to cover Shaolin, I try to cover Tiberius, but I also try to cover something for my team, because they are probably the wall is so big, the wall is so huge that there are more angles than you actually can or could cover with a straight wall, so to say. That's why you always want to place it a little bit to, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it, but I think you see what I mean, like to the side, whatever, turn a little bit around to cover more angles of the whole map. So you basically want to try to help your team, help your DPS, help your flanks to get a pick, because the wall basically on many maps just walls the whole map. So imagine you're playing against snipers and you're having snipers, or even if you don't have snipers, imagine you're playing against snipers or other backline DPS. Can just wall every one of them. They can't do any damage, and the time your wall is up, your team can use to kill the enemy team, because the enemy team can't destroy your wall. Your wall is literally undestroyable, so to say. So you can't destroy a endless wall. So you want to help your team to get enough time, so to say, to get a pick, to get a kill. Obviously you want to wall damage also for yourself, but the main goal is to use the wall for your whole team. Try to wall your whole team, save your whole team, and I don't know, then you want your DPS obviously to win the 1v1. So imagine there's a sniper on your team, there's a sniper on the enemy team. Then with the Atlas wall, your sniper should be able to win the 1v1 easily, just because they can free fire. So even if they probably don't get a pick on the sniper, because the enemy sniper is smart and just hides or whatever, but you can get a pick on the healer or whatever, just because your sniper doesn't have to worry about getting damage or whatever just because of your wall. So with playing Temporal Divide, you actually want to help your team to get enough time, or use the time they have, the time where they can't get damaged. They obviously can get damaged when the enemy passes the wall, but in theory they're behind the wall, and you want to help your team to make sure to actually push or win the fight, so to say, because of the wall. So I think now we have like a basic understanding of what your goal is with playing Temporal Divide, and what you want to do, what for you want to use your wall. So you can see every time I use my wall at the beginning, how I start my fights, I place the wall that I get behind cover and my team gets behind cover. You also could play the other side, you also could play the right side, but I just felt that it's harder for me to start the fights on right side, because their DPS, their backline DPS like Shaolin and Tiberius is also staying on top for some reason, are just staying and hiding on top. So therefore it's hard for me to actually start the fight on right side from my perspective. So that's why I wanted to at least go left side, still wall, still shield my team, and be able to at least pressure them with shooting them. So as I said before, you have a really long cooldown, and I don't know what options do you have to decrease the cooldown or whatever, because you obviously don't want to have a cooldown of 21 seconds. So you're looking for reasons, not reasons. you're looking for options to decrease this cooldown to get as much value out of your wall as possible, so to say. So there are actually some cards where you could decrease the cooldown of your status field of your wall when you hit your setback. So that's why I personally use the same loadout for Deja and Temporal Divide. You also could choose a different loadout, but that's what I've come up with, or what I think works good for me. But I think a card you always want to use is the cooldown reduction after hitting your setback. So your setback is actually, it's harder obviously to hit when you play Temporal Divide, just because it's it's not area based. It's just you have to hit it directly, so you can't really spam it wherever you want. You actually have to aim it, and you actually obviously have to hit the enemy, and that's a thing you actually have to work on, I think. Just try to learn how to hit your setbacks, because if you hit your setbacks, then you get the cooldown reduction. If you invest 5 points, I personally use 5 points on this card, get 5 seconds cooldown reduction. So 5 seconds from 21 is already, just imagine your wall was up, then you have the cooldown, and then you hit your setback immediately after your wall is or went off or whatever. Then you already get like 5 seconds cooldown reduction. But sometimes you obviously also want to use your setback for finishing up kills or whatever. So that's why it doesn't work like that in the game. It's just theory based or whatever. But the fact that you get 5 seconds cooldown reduction is already pretty good. And I think the more common point or whatever situation is that you actually get Chronos 3, because I feel like I also talked about other items later on, but I feel like Chronos is a really good item for Atlas, because Atlas has such long cooldowns. You want to decrease them, and Chronos 3 decreases all your cooldowns by 30 seconds. So you only have a cooldown of 70 seconds, so to say, if you want to see it that way. So 70 seconds from 21 seconds, 70% from 21 seconds are 14.7 seconds. So you're almost back to what your normal cooldown is. So 14, let's just say you have a cooldown of 15 seconds. And then you hit your setback or whatever, then your cooldown is reduced to almost 10 seconds, just with getting full Chronos and having this loader card in your loadout. So that's why I think this is a pretty good card to use for Atlas, just because you have a great impact on your wall while hitting your setbacks, because you usually always want to try to use your setbacks to displace the enemy, lower their HP again, and just finish up kills or whatever. But when playing Temporal Divide, your setback is more about resetting your cooldowns than actually finishing up kills, in my opinion. I mean, you always want to use the setback to finish up kills and set them back and stuff like that, but I think here it actually works better to just decrease the cooldown of your wall, because it has such a big impact. Another card you could use is actually the movement card. So if you walk through the status field, you increase the movement speed of yourself and your allies by up to 35%. But they kind of changed this card a lot, so it used to be for 5 seconds, now it's 30 seconds. I think 30 seconds is still okay, but it is not as good as it used to be. And I think the percentage was also higher, like the movement speed increase was also higher you used to get. But I still think it's a good card to enable your team even more. I think this card is maybe a little bit more situational, because you want to or you need your team to play around your wall. You need your team to actually walk through your wall. You need your DPS to realize they get movement speed while walking through it. So I think the movement speed card works best when you have a more, I don't know, competitive matchup, maybe a more competitive team where you use voice chat or whatever, or where you know each other and know the legendaries and the loadouts of each other, because then your teammates actually can use the extra movement speed. They not only can use the wall for shielding or whatever, they also use the movement speed to be faster and stuff like that. But I don't know. Currently, I'm not using this card because I feel like it's a good card, but I think, I don't know. I want to use different cards, easier cards maybe. But yeah, that's about it for the loadout. I think the other card I already said, like increase my HP, and I forgot the other card on level 3 is actually heal on my wall. So I heal while using my wall, just because you obviously want to use your wall when you're low, kinda. I mean, it depends. I think it's not that easy to normalize things or whatever. Like, in theory, you want to use your wall sometimes to make sure you don't die. But you also could use your wall to start fights. Like as I said, you want to make sure your DPS has a easier matchup and stuff like that. But when the point fights are won or lost or whatever, and you just play, then you obviously want to use your wall while you or your teammates are low. And if you are low, you just get healed for at least a little bit, because it's just easier for you to stay alive. You're basically safe behind the wall, and you just want to get this safety or whatever to be a little bit more tanky and make it easier for your healer to heal you up, because you already healed yourself a little bit or whatever. So I think that's basically it for the temporal divide. Just to summarize things, what you want to take care of or where you want to play temporal divide is, first of all, Atlas is an off tank. So no matter which legendary, Atlas is an off tank. So even more of an off tank, or it's even harder to play him as a power tank if you play Temporal Divide, because of the long cooldown. So your reason or your goal should be to play as an off tank, not on the point. What else do you want to do while being an off tank or while playing Temporal Divide? So you basically want to enable your team, enable your DPS, or protect your team and your DPS, because the enemy team, if you use your wall, can't do anything about it. They can't push, they can't start pushes or whatever. They basically need to wait until your wall is over. But your team can set up for a good push. Your team can use the time they won through the shielding or the wall or whatever to get the kills, because they can't get damaged, only if the enemy team pushes through or whatever. And that's it. Like you want to shield, use the wall for your team, not only for yourself. Try to shield everything, the whole map, so to say. So that's why you want to kind of turn yourself around. And as I said before, as items or whatever, just use Chronos, because Chronos is helpful for you to decrease your cooldown, because the cooldown is so long, and you also want to use the loader card, which reduces your shield or your wall while hitting your setback. Because then I think I don't have to explain it. It's obvious. You decrease the cooldown of your wall. You have it easier. You annoy the enemy team more. Easier to enable pushes, stuff like that. And I think when playing Temporary Divide, you're more of an enabler or more of a team player. You basically need your team to make use out of your wall, because your it's not that easy for you to actually finish up kills, because it's harder to hit your setback, and otherwise your setback is pretty strong to finish up the kills and stuff like that. But I've played a lot of matches where my team actually couldn't get any value out of my walls, out of my temporal divide walls. So that's why I think it works better in higher elo games, higher rank games, and more competitive games, because then your teammates are better, or I don't know, it's easier to make the whole team play around your big wall. So that's it for temporal divide. Let's see how Deja Vu works. Okay, welcome back to the second part. Now we are talking about Deja Vu. And before we start, or I start talking about Deja Vu, I want to add that I think Temporal Divide is a legendary which is harder to make work, and it's not the classic off-tank legendary, so to say, because usually off-tanks, I mean, they also could enable your teammates. They also want to enable your teammates, but usually they do it in a different way. Because they want to start a fight and go in. That's how you want to enable your team. But with Temporal Divide, you enable your team with extra utility, so to say. So that's why it's a little bit different. And it's not the classic off-tank, so to say, in my opinion. In the right hands, on the right team, it's really, really good. But you basically have to be really good to play around it. Your whole team, or almost your whole team, needs to play around your walls, and needs to get value out of your walls. That's why it requires a little bit more skill of your team. It's a little bit harder for yourself to carry on Temporal Divide, just because you kind of lose your value when your team doesn't play around your walls, or doesn't know how to use your walls. That's just what I wanted to add to Temporal Divide. So now to Deja Vu. The champion the legendary description of Deja Vu says that your setback is now projectile, and it affects areas, so to say. So you basically can set back more enemies, not only one, because it's a projectile, and you can just spam it on the ground to hit more enemies at once, so to say. And I think with playing Deja Vu, this is more like the classic off-tank. Just do your thing. Obviously try to play with your flank together, to start pushes together, because then you're maybe 2v1 or whatever. It's just harder for the enemy team to kill all of you. But you also have it a little bit easier to solo carry on yourself, so to say, because you have a bigger impact on yourself, with yourself, whatever, without your team, because it's just easier. Because with Deja Vu, you can with Deja Vu you can basically kill everyone you want, just because you can, I don't know, you make them low, so to say. You fight them, they are low, and then even if they get behind corners, you can just set them back to confirm the kill, because they can't move after being set back. So it's so easy for you to actually hit the setback. It's so easy for you to confirm the kill, learn the timing of your setback, and then it's pretty easy for you to actually carry and I don't know, actually kill everyone you want, so to say. Because even if they hide, this is what makes it so strong. Even if they hide behind corners, you don't even have to see them. You just spam your projector, your setback behind the corner, and they still get setback. So they can't really hide from you. They can't really avoid your setback, and that's why it's so strong. And you can just go in and do stuff on yourself, because I mean, his weapon in general is just strong and all, but the strongest part actually is his setback, in my opinion. I mean, he has a strong kit in general, but the strongest part is his setback. setback. So you don't really need your team to play around your wall or whatever, because you can just do things on your own. I mean, you always can do things on your own, but with having your setback as a projectile, it's just easier in my opinion. And you also can obviously set back more enemies at once. So sometimes you have to decide which enemy you want to set back, because you need to think about who has more value for your team to kill or whatever. But with Deja Vu, it doesn't matter, because you basically can set both of them back or stuff like that. That's why it's also so strong. And you still can use your wall, but now you want to use your wall a little bit differently when playing Deja Vu. When playing Deja Vu, you want to use your wall as real shield, so to say, but different to other tanks, because on other tanks you also could use shields to just avoid damage. So the start fights, you just shield some incoming damage. But that's not the main idea of Atlas Wall. With Atlas Wall, or I personally like to use Atlas Wall when you're actually low, because you have just the reset button for yourself, so use your second chance, you're full HP, almost full HP again. But you don't want to use it that early. You want to try to get as many chances as possible, because if you used your second chance early, then you obviously don't have a second chance. So that's why you want to try, if possible, obviously, to use your wall first, because then if you're low, you can just wall incoming damage. I like to use, as I said before, or as I explained before, I like to use the healing, because the healing feels already pretty good in my opinion. So you can use your wall early, avoid incoming, not early. You can use your wall first, so to say, when you're low. Avoid or just wall incoming damage, heal yourself while using your wall, because the here you already have, because of your wall or whatever, is already pretty good, or is already pretty high. So as I said before, I used this card on level 3, so the general or the heal on level 1 is 80. So I just heal for 240 for 3 seconds. So if you take it's just 720 HP you regenerate with your wall, so to say. So this is pretty good already. Compared to his general HP, this is already a lot of HP you can regenerate with just using a wall, avoid incoming damage, and healing yourself, so to say. And then or I personally like to also use the cooldown reduction of my wall while hitting my setback. So because I use my setback whenever I have it to confirm kills, so I don't really use my setback in the first place to reset the cooldown of my wall. Here I just, when playing Deja Vu, I just use the setback to confirm kills and displace enemies, because I don't rely that much on my wall, so to say, that I don't want to, or because it's not that hard to actually hit my setback. I don't need to care that much about it. I can just spam whenever I want, so to say, to confirm kills. And just because I use my setback so often to confirm kills, because I play the off tank role, as off tanks you also want to confirm kills or get kills or whatever, I automatically reduce the cooldown of my wall, which is pretty good. So I'm pretty independent while playing around my wall, having my second chance and my setbacks, because I can just set enemies back whenever I want to just confirm the kills I want, because it's so easy for me, even if they use movement abilities or whatever, to just set them back in time, set them back to the lowest HP, so to say, and just confirm the kills. So, and I've talked about the cooldown reduction and Chronos for Temporal Divide, but I also said that I used the same loadout for Temporal Divide as for Deja Vu. I said I maybe would use for Temporal Divide, would use the movement speed card for my wall, because the wall is bigger, it's easier for your whole team to get value out of it. But I think the movement speed isn't that much of value when playing Deja Vu, because then your goal is a little bit different than just enabling your team, so to say. You more want to enable yourself, but still want to play around your wall as much as possible, because your wall is still broken. Your wall can't get destroyed and stuff like that. So your general cooldown on your wall is 14 seconds. If you have Chronos 3, so again reduce all your cooldowns by 30%, so your cooldowns are only 70%. 70% of 14 seconds, 9.8 seconds left. And if you then hit your setbacks, and I think on Deja Vu it's even more broken, just because you can hit more enemies at once, and your cooldown gets reduced by hitting one, or for each enemy being hit by your setback. So if you only hit one enemy, you reduce your cooldown to 4.8 seconds, or almost 5 seconds. But if you hit more enemies at once, you reduce the cooldown, or you almost completely reduce your cooldown of your wall again. So that's why in my opinion this card is so strong. So I said I wanted to talk about items as well, and I already said that the Kronos is a really good item for Unendless, in my opinion, just because of the cooldown reduction combined with your loadout cards, or even without the loadout cards, the cooldown reduction is already pretty good. What are other cards or other items you want to use? The first item to go obviously is Cauterize. You always want to get Cauterize, because Cauterize is so important. It helps you to confirm kills, especially on Atlas. It's so good because it's so frustrating to fight someone, setting them back, and you fought them for the whole time, but they just got healed the whole time because you don't have enough cord. So that's why you actually want to make them low, want to make sure that they can't get healed for the full amount, and then just set them back and confirm the low kill, so to say, or the low target. So other items after cord, definitely Kronos. It always depends a little bit on what I play against, but I wouldn't hesitate to pick Kronos as the second item, so to say. But I personally think sometimes it's just easier for you, or more annoying, to not get resilience, because Atlas can be crippled now or before using his second chance. Actually, it wasn't like that in the beginning, or like they added it later, so to say. In the beginning you couldn't get crippled while being Atlas or whatever. So that's why you're kind of vulnerable to CC, and you want to avoid that CC, or want to just make sure you don't be stunned for that long or whatever. So that's why you want to get resilience, because you want to survive, you want to be able to use your second chance and stuff like that. So if you play against heavy CC, just get resilience as second item or whatever. And other items I feel like on Atlas are Haven or Blast, because, as I said before, his HP pool isn't that high. I mean, you have your second chance, so you basically have 2 lives, or almost 2 lives, because you usually can't use your second chance at 1 HP or whatever, and get back to full HP. But I think you understand what I mean. So because his HP pool isn't that high, you want to get out more time, get out more damage, so to say, for yourself to survive. That's why I feel like those items are good, or were good on Atlas. And I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's no real damage reduction you could add with shields or whatever, with cards or whatever, just because his general kit is so strong. That's why I think the damage reduction brought by Haven or Blast is also a good pick. And then after it, if you still have enough credits to buy something else, because those are pretty expensive items, like Kronos, Haven or Blast are pretty, even Cord is kind of kind of expensive. So it's pretty unlikely for you to be able to buy even more. But otherwise, I think, I mean, it depends what you want to get. If you want to get resilience or not. If you also got resilience, then there's no spot left, so to say. But I think Nimble could also work. I think Nimble works on every champion because it's so strong. And then maybe Rejuvenate, because there are also some cards where you could increase the heal brought by your healer. But yeah, to summarize this or tell the difference to Temporal Divide when playing Deja Vu, you are more independent from your team. You don't have to play with your team. You can just do stuff on your own. You can just go in, play aggressive, set enemies back, confirm the kills, and be more like the classic off tank, so to say, and be more independent from your team. So I think this is a pretty long video. Also, the gameplays took really long, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you could learn something from it. Maybe I could clear things up. Maybe I confused you more. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you've had a nice day. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Always remember, don't forget, you guys are awesome.